This episode is brought to you by Smart Food, the sweet, salty snack you need this holiday season. Air pop popcorn, tossed in delicious white cheddar cheese, or mixed with sweet caramel and cheddar. It's the perfect snack for your smart holiday party. Learn more at smartfood.com.
Empire.
Hello and welcome to my podcast. Today, I'm joined by ESPN's Tim McManus as we discuss the team he covers, the Philadelphia Eagles. Why have they climbed into the playoff race, and what do they have in quarterback Jalen Hurts? Where has he improved the most over the last 4 or 5 weeks? There is some question, though, right now as to whether or not Hurts will play. This discussion was pretty much assuming that he was going to. It was taped earlier in the week, but that's where, and he was limited in practice this week. But I'd still put money on him playing just as a gut feel. So anyway, a lot of discussion on him, but it's also about other parts of the Eagles. You can follow Tim on Twitter at Tim_McManus, and you can read both our work on ESPN.com. I have stories up now about how they're handling the COVID outbreak, as I'm sure you know. It ain't easy, folks. Before I play my conversation with Tim, a couple things plus a prediction. As of this recording, Washington has 21 players on the COVID list, including 6 of their top 7 remaining defensive linemen. I say that with Chase Young on IR and out for the year. 2 of their starting defensive backs in Kendall Fuller and Cam Curl. It's brutal, and there's really no way to prepare for a situation like this because, in all honesty, there's still a few days left before the game. There probably are going to be more. Now, conversely, there may be some that come off. But one thing I'll go back to is what a lot of players said about Ron Rivera when they were 2-6 and what they said about him last year. They couldn't tell what their record was based on how he reacted to them. He was the same. It makes a difference because if the players see you panic, then they feel a need to panic or at least wonder, why are you panicking? Do you not trust us? Is this situation worse than we thought? Now, clearly in this situation, everybody knows it's bad. But in this case, every coach we've talked to, from Ron Rivera to the coordinators, has said the same things. They're going to prepare the guys they have available. They're saying this in a very straightforward manner, like, hey, this is a job we have. This is a job we'll do. Doesn't mean they're going to win. May not even be competitive. Who knows? But it does mean they're not going to panic, and I think that's a good thing. Let's go back a few years. And I remember the day that Junior Gillette got hurt in practice the first time he was with Washington, when he was first with Washington, around a week before the season opener. So we're standing outside the locker room, and Jay Gruden literally walked around outside the locker room looking like his best friend had died. He wore his emotions on his sleeve. Honest to God, he was walking, muttering to himself, I'm just having a bad day. I'm just having a bad day. And I just remember thinking, like, I don't know if that's the way you want your head coach to be acting in that situation. Now, the team ended up, I think that year they were 9-7. Good quarterback play helped. But I don't, during a time of chaos, players need to see somebody in charge who can remain calm and project a level of confidence. I haven't sensed an ounce of panic when interviewing anyone here, including the players. Again, may not mean success on the field Sunday, but I think it's the right tone to strike. As a coach, you have to focus on opportunity. Guys all want playtime. Here's your chance. You want it, now you have it. And those players don't view this as a lost cause. They view it as a chance to prove themselves, maybe make some money. I do feel kind of bad for a guy like Tim Settle if he is not able to play because he's a free agent after this year. And I think I told you the other day, a really good game in this situation, if John Allen couldn't play and Tim gets more time, a good game in that situation could earn him a couple more $1 million, whether per year or over the life of a contract. Anyway, it's one thing when you have 1 or 2 guys in that situation. It's a whole other when you have as many as Washington has. This isn't about next man up, folks. It's really next unit up, in some cases, next roster up. And I do think this team responds to Rivera. You just have to look at the second half of the game against Dallas. At halftime, they're down. They were getting their butts kicked. They're as bad as first half as I've seen them play in a long time. Rivera reads them the riot act. From what I understand, the old linebacker came out roaring. He told them to not come out with their tails between their legs, that it was a pathetic first half, and that they need to have some pride. He told them they owed it to the fans who paid their hard-earned money to expect and to see them play a certain way. The message resonated. I think the way they handled the situation, his message will resonate as well. Maybe not, again, in terms of wins and losses, but in the way they respond after such a crazy week. It's 1 week. It's a pivotal one, but it's just 1 week. That's how you don't want to, while this is a huge game in terms of the playoffs, you don't want to eliminate yourself with just this one loss because there are 3 games after this. The one piece of good news for Washington on Thursday was the NFL altering or tweaking its protocols a bit. So now a player can return after receiving 2 negative tests on the same day rather than on consecutive days, as had been the protocol. Conceivably, that would enable Washington to get a lot of its players back sooner than initially thought. It might make the difference in a day or so for players. That would help for some, but it's not unusual for people who are asymptomatic to still test positive after several days or longer. I know at least a few of these players on the list do not have symptoms. That doesn't mean they'll test negative and be back before Sunday. It just means they aren't showing symptoms, but they still might test positive. This does give more of them a shot, however. There is a chance they'll get all of their defensive linemen back, even Montez Sweat. Again, chance. I emphasize chance. I don't even know what percentage. I can't even put a percentage on it because who the heck knows who's going to test positive on Saturday or Sunday. Jack Del Rio said they would play Montez Sweat if he is cleared on Saturday. That's the 10th day for him. So he would be eligible to play. He just hasn't played since October 31st, but they said he's been working out and they like what they've seen of him, whether on Zoom. So we'll see. And I don't know how much he could really play, but he certainly would play. As for a prediction, it's really hard to pick Washington based on what we know right now, which is they just don't have the players available. It's not just those on COVID, it's those who are hurt, notably Terry McLaurin, J.D. McKissick. I put Curtis Samuel on that list, but he hasn't done anything yet for Washington to say what kind of a huge loss he would be. I think the potential of Curtis Samuel has been a loss all season. But right now, in terms of tangible losses, I don't put him in the same class as McLaurin or McKissick or anywhere close. Those two will be big losses. It will be a 3rd game in a row for McKissick. McLaurin was out there practicing on Thursday in a limited way. But once they finished the positional warm-up drills, he went over to the side field where McKissick was already at. So we'll see. Just because guys are out there when they have concussions running around doesn't mean they'll be able to play. So we'll see what happens. All total, they have 34 players on injury reserve and the COVID list combined. There are a couple who are on both lists. I won't get into all the reasons why I'm picking Philly. I think it's kind of obvious, isn't it? Washington doesn't have the players, and we have no idea who will return or when. If a bunch of the D-line returns this week, then we could be looking at a much different situation or again outcome. They can use their 5 D-line front versus this group. They probably still use it anyways, but it's a lot better when they have these other guys on the field. It's tailor-made for what Philly does on offense. They want to run the ball, and they don't throw it especially well. Jalen Hurts has been better lately, as you'll hear from Tim in a few minutes, but they're not a consistent passing team. They don't have that kind of weaponry right now. So that 5 D-line front, really good for what Philly does. If you can get some of those players back, because right now, Deron Payne is the only original starter on that group. Washington should be able to try to run the ball. And I say that, first of all, the Eagles have been pretty good on D, but Washington is down to their 5th center in John Toth. But they do have 4 starting offensive linemen who were original O-line starters, plus 2 of their top 3 tight ends and their top back in Antonio Gibson. They're missing key parts in the pass game, which would help even with the run game, but they can make it work if they play smart and tough and if the defense is able to keep it close. They fall behind a little bit, then we saw what happened last week, and Taylor Heineke has to be a lot smarter. But I do think that there's a formula. If you get some guys back, it's just going to be awfully, awfully tough. And the kicker is that I think this would be a good matchup for them otherwise. But one thing in Washington's favor on D is the versatility in the back end. Don't be surprised if Jeremy Reeves is the 3rd safety with Landon Collins and Bobby McCain in some sets. Reeves is smart and prepared. I loved when we had him on a Zoom call Thursday, and he went over how he's a different safety compared to last year. He talked about, first of all, the input he gets from guys like Bobby McCain, William Jackson, Landon Collins, how he's learned from them. And the mental reps he takes, and how when he's watching a game and just seeing how when he was watching, he'd see how offense is attacked their various schemes or coverages, and it helped him learn. Again, when you learn how offenses attack a coverage, it allows you to play a certain way. And I think that's what he's done. And also, he said he understands route concepts a lot better too. But I also like guys such as Reeves because of the desire aspect. He was asked by the Washington Times, Matt Paris, on the Zoom call, why stick around after you've been cut? He could have signed another practice squad. Reeves got a little emotional actually answering this question, admitted that it was very tough. He felt his play last year had put him in a place where he wouldn't be back on the practice squad, but he's been there all year. But he said his mother told him, you don't quit something when you start, and he wants to make it here. It's guys like this who have a golden opportunity Sunday, and whether or not he gets the job done, he's going to approach it with a certain amount of energy and desire, and that's something that can help. I also think this situation can pay dividends down the road. How do you respond to adversity? This isn't just about a win or a loss. It's about how you compete. Find guys who want to compete in any situation, and you can find guys who can help your team eventually. If they lose, they'll be 6-8 with a trip to Dallas, and who knows who will be available for that one. There's a chance they could make the playoffs at 8-9, but that scenario relies on a lot of help. Their main participants, like competitors, likely would be the Eagles, Saints, and Falcons, and I'm kind of putting the 49ers in there right now. So that's the shame of this weekend. It impacts the playoff race in a huge way. For the last month, Ron Rivera has played the David versus Goliath theme. It's never been more appropriate than it is this weekend. All right, that's enough from me. Let's turn to the Eagles now, because there's still a game that must be played, and as bad as it looks now, we really don't know yet who's going to be available on Sunday. So let's talk about the game. So after this break, I'll be joined by ESPN's Tim McManus. Why are the Eagles running the ball so well?
Jack Johnson grew up surfing and playing guitar in Hawaii. Next summer, he'll be hitting the road to bring you some of that island feeling. Catch Jack and his band, who will be joined at various tour stops by Ben Harper and the Innocent Criminals, Ziggy Marley, Lake Street Dive, Durand Jones and the Indications, and more, in a city near you. Get ready to make some new memories with your friends and family, and get your tickets today at Ticketmaster.com.
This episode is brought to you by HP Plus. In a world full of smart devices, shouldn't your printer be smart too? It is with HP Plus. These printers know when they're running low, so you always get the ink you need delivered right when you need it. Plus, you save up to 50% on ink, so you can print whatever you want, as much as you want, anytime you want. Huh, that is pretty smart. Get 6 free months of instant ink when you choose HP Plus. Conditions apply. Visit hp.com/smart for details.
Welcome back. Now here's my conversation with ESPN's Tim McManus. All right, Tim. Well, this is not the game I thought would take place this year, where the Eagles are playing the way they are. Are you surprised at what they've done this season?
I guess the answer from the beginning of the season would be no. I had them right around 8 wins.
That's right.
Coming into this year, and so they're kind of trending towards that. But there's so many ups and downs, John, in the season that you kind of get carried away.
Sure.
Fans do it, media does it, where a bad loss, feels like the earth is cratering. A big win, it feels like they're on top of the world, and the answer typically lies somewhere in between. But I think if we looked at the way that this season was projecting, you saw that it was a first-year head coach in Nick Sirianni, coupled with a young quarterback in Jalen Hurts, and they had one of the toughest opening schedules in the entire league. So you expected there to be some pretty rough moments, and indeed there were. And then it smoothed out for them, where they had one of the easiest closing schedules, where they could gather some wins. And in fact, that's what's happened. So I guess I'm not surprised how we got here, but it is kind of interesting that we have two teams that we're talking about that both are vying for a playoff spot.
Yeah, I know. And, this is where I thought this team would be. I thought their ceiling was about a 9 or 10 win season. I think the injuries are going to put what might not get them there, but they're kind of right in that 9-win range right now, but that takes a hot finish. And I don't know if they have enough left to do that. But in terms of health, like this team is banged up. We're just talking about before we came on here, how banged up they are, player losses. How are the Eagles in that area?
They're doing okay, actually. I mean, this has been one of the most injured teams in the entire NFL over the last
Correct.
4 years.
Right.
And this year, by comparison, has been better. Like they lost Brandon Graham. He's like the heart of that defense early on in the season. But they've been able to kind of manage. It's certainly hurt them, but he's been a major loss. They lost Brandon Brooks, their star right guard, early in the season. Then Jack Driscoll, their backup right guard, just went down, so they're on their third right guard. But they have one of the best offensive line coaches in the NFL, and Jeff Stoutland, and they've done a really nice job of making sure that they didn't miss too much of a beat, even with those injuries. And now you have on the left side, Jordan Mailata and Landon Dickerson, the rookie out of Alabama, who has come into his own. And they still have one of the best O-lines in the NFL, number one in rushing, heading into this game. So there have been some injuries along the way, but not debilitating like it was in past seasons.
What I saw with Dickerson, that I think somebody there compared him, they could be like, had some qualities of a Quentin Nelson too, which is high praise.
Nick Sirianni.
Nick Sirianni,
the head coach said that. Yep.
Yeah, which is high praise. With Jalen Hurts, because everything comes back to the quarterback, they switched to a more ground game attack. Why has that worked so well?
Well, it just fits in with the personnel that they have. I mean, I think that Sirianni, one of his biggest blunders early was going pass heavy. He wasn't leaning on this running back group at all. I mean, these guys were ending up with 7-9 carries a game. And he recognized over the course of those weeks, it really took week 7, week 8 until it kicked in, that, look, I got one of the best offensive lines in the league. There's a lot of road pavers in there, and you have a quarterback who is a threat with his feet, which opens up a whole lot of other opportunities for the running backs and can help fuel that run game. And then you build the play action off of that. And Jalen Hurts happens to be a really good play action passer. And so the light just kind of clicked after, some failures on offense early in the season where they were putting too much on the shoulders of Hurts. Like he was accounting for 75%, 80% of the offensive yardage, and he's still essentially a rookie. That was a big mistake by this coaching staff early, but to their credit, they corrected it. And the offense has stabilized since then, where they're hovering right around the top 10 in a lot of the major categories.
Teams know they're going to run the ball too, yet they're still doing it. Obviously his legs, you have to defend his legs, and that always makes it hard for a defense. But what else about that running game makes it so effective?
I mean, the offensive line has just been playing out of its mind. From Jason Kelce to the left, Kelce's still playing at an extremely high level. Dickerson, playing like Quentin Nelson apparently, and then Jordan Mailata, the former Australian rugby player, who's just a massive, giant human being. And so they've been able to create some serious lanes on the left side. And then Lane Johnson, the right tackle on the right, is one of the premier right tackles in the game as well. So that's been a major part of it. And whether it's Jordan Howard or Miles Sanders or Boston Scott or Kenny Gainwell running the ball, they've all seemed to have some success. And then Hurts, he's number 2 among quarterbacks behind only Lamar Jackson and rushing yards. And so, if they're always doing the zone reads, so they're at the mesh point, the defensive end or linebacker has to freeze and account for the fact that Hurts may pull it and run with it. And so that creates more of a seam for running backs to get through. So that equation has worked really well for this team.
It's funny because in Robert Griffin III's second year, people start talking about the zone read is done. I'm like, it's never been done, because it still works when you run it right. Because if they're getting 5-6 yards off a zone read, that works. That's a good play. So, how about in terms of Hurts' throwing and his passing ability? You brought the play action, and I know there's not a huge passing attack. You have Devontae Smith, who's been very good, Dallas Scott, very good, but where is their passing game at? And is that an area where, if you stop the run, how much trouble would the Eagles be in?
They would probably be in some trouble, at least based on the sample size that we have so far. Like, if you look at their passing numbers, they're like 28th in the league. If you look at Jalen Hurts' completion percentage, it hovers right around there, usually around 28, 29 in the NFL. And so that would be an area of weakness for them. Generally, though, once they switched into this run-based attack, Hurts became pretty efficient in the way that he was throwing the ball with the play action working off of the ground game. He would get into this kind of rhythm where he was really effective. He's just been inconsistent. Like there's been games where he's looked dynamite throwing the ball. And then there's games like his last one against the Giants, which was the worst outing of his career, where he threw 3 picks and it looked bad. And it's a loss that, you might reflect on the season and be like, okay, well, that's the one that they should have had and they didn't. And maybe they don't get into the playoffs because of that. Then he gets hurt in that game. Minshew comes in, creates a whole buzz here in Philadelphia.
Yeah, Minshew mania. Yeah.
Oh, Minshew mania. Yeah. Alive and well. Helps that he played the Jets,
It always does. But you had to calm about that. Like you got to stick with Jalen, because it also seems like some guys players just respond to. And it seems like Jalen, I wasn't in love with him coming out because of throwing the bill and all that, but I love the competitor in him. And guys gravitate toward people like that. Do you think?
Totally. I think you have the exact right read on him. 23 years old. And I agree with you. Coming out, I mean, there was questions, not just from guys like you and me, but from inside that building.
Right.
Who are like, I don't know, because of the inconsistencies as a passer and whether he was going to be able to turn that around. But yes, the leadership qualities were evident really from the jump. Like even last year, he had guys that were rallying around him to a point where it became kind of a problem for Carson Wentz because he just has this very strong gravitational pull. And especially once Wentz started struggling, then guys were going towards Hurts a little bit. But, he's put in all the effort with his teammates. It's like football is life. It's what he focuses on, and making sure that everybody is coming with him is a major priority. So during the offseason, taking every single guy out individually to dinner, building relationships. And so, yes, the bond is kind of strong. And that's one of a couple of reasons I think why you got to stick with Hurts, for the rest of the regular season, whether he's coming off a bad game or not. Do you think they have 3 first-round picks? Do you think he's going to be the guy beyond this year, or is that to be determined? Yeah, it's a TBD right now. He's got 4 games of evidence to put forth to management to say, listen, you should stick with me, and you should use those 3 first-round picks to build up the defense, or get me another playmaker, things like that. But it's certainly them going in a different direction is not off the table. In fact, if I had to put odds on it, I mean, I might lean that way right now because they've already been linked to Deshaun Watson, and that was real. Like their pursuit of him, from my understanding, like that's legit. And then Russell Wilson could be out there. I think that they're going to explore all those avenues, but if Jalen Hurts finishes strong, if he comes out and he rolls this team into the postseason, that's a hard sell to go in a different direction, isn't it, John? Like it is. And I think in that case, to me, it's like, you don't have to force it. If a guy's not there that you're not sold on, like if you think, well, we need to get a quarterback, don't just take any quarterback, get a guy that is a high level performer, because you already have a guy who can get you to a certain place. No doubt. And he's got a couple of years left on that rookie contract. So you have him in there. That's a big deal. Cheap. He's 23 years old. I mean, the numbers that he has put up to this point in his career are similar to Lamar Jackson through this stage of his career. So you can make a case. But I think organizationally, you got to commit to it. Yeah. And I don't know that Jeffrey Lurie wants to do that necessarily. Like he's a pass first minded guy. He's not about this ground game at all. Philosophically, but obviously it's the right thing to do in this current situation. So it's a point of intrigue. It's going to be very interesting to see how they handle it. And, we're going to be writing it and covering it quite a bit. All right. Few minutes left here. Ryan Kerrigan, I've seen the stats. I don't think he's got a sack this year. What has his role been with the Eagles, and how has he looked? The hope was that he was going to come in and be like that Chris Long boost, where he would have, a limited role, but be very effective in it. And it just hasn't happened. He injured his thumb during the offseason in the summer. And I don't know that when he came out of the chute that he was even close to 100%, and that affected him. And it looks like I mean, he doesn't look like the same player he was in Washington. He hasn't been very effective. Defensive coordinator Jonathan Gannon sticks up for him and says that his eyes are always right. Like, he's in the right spot. He's playing winning football for us. But if you look at the stat sheet and you look at just the kind of limited production, it's like, what at least the public thought that they might be getting in Ryan Kerrigan isn't the same thing as what's transpired on the field.
Yeah, because I just thought, well, is he not getting snaps? And I see this. No, he's getting snaps. He's getting enough snaps to be more productive. That's for sure. Why this defense is obviously also playing better? Is it because of the run game controlling the clock, or is there something the defense is doing that you say this is why they're playing better?
Yeah, I mean, the offense, playing complementary football definitely helps. I would say the other thing is that Gannon the defensive coordinator, it's his first time ever doing it, has found his footing a little bit. He was playing a lot of like soft zone, where the Eagles have set a record for a number of opposing quarterbacks that have completed 80% of their throws this year. Like, they had 5 QBs that did it to them. It's and that's because they were playing so soft.
But not many explosive plays.
Yeah. They wanted to keep those deep throws off of them at any cost. And it turned out that, the cost was losing games in some circumstances because he was so extreme in the way that he went in that direction. But he's starting to mix it up more. I think he's probably trusting the players in his scheme a little bit more. We can throw some wrinkles. We can bring some heat. We can play a little bit more press man. And so those combinations of things have helped solidify the defense. And Darius Slay's playing great. He has 3 defensive touchdowns on the season. Like, he's been very sticky in coverage. Kind of looks like the prime Detroit year Darius Slay, which I didn't know if that was coming back after sort of an average year by his standards last year. So that's definitely helped.
Last thing, where are they vulnerable on defense?
Well, I would say the safety position. They've been like up the middle, you could probably see generally, although TJ Edwards stepping in at linebacker has helped them. But Rodney McLeod, he's coming off of an ACL and hasn't been quite up to his form. Anthony Harris maybe hasn't met expectations when he was signed to a 1-year deal from Minnesota. And I would say safe, like right up the gut is probably where they're most vulnerable in that back end. But in the secondary, generally on the outside, they've been pretty good at the cornerback position with Steve Nelson, Darius Slay, Avonte Maddox in the slot. They've been pretty good for the Eagles this year.
Tim, appreciate the insight, and we will see you on Sunday.
Looking forward to it, John. Thanks for having me.
This episode is brought to you by Timberland. The Timberland boot was built to keep you warm, keep you dry. Then they passed it on for you to build something. You took it from Buffalo and Philly to Chi-Town and New York. From London to Paris, all the way to Shanghai, around the block and around the world. They built a boot. You made it an icon. Timberland, build forward. Share your Timberland story and tag them at Timberland.
This episode is brought to you by Candy Crush Saga. The holidays can be pretty hectic, so take a little time for yourself with the ultimate holiday treat, the classic Match 3 puzzle Candy Crush Saga. And right now, you can catch the limited time event, Sweet Surprise Season, and win sweet daily rewards like a super rare party booster and up to 10 gold bars. Don't miss out. Play Sweet Surprise Season in Candy Crush Saga and crush it this holiday season now until January 1st. Download from the App Store, Google Play, or Windows Store for free. Terms and conditions apply.
That's it for this episode. Thanks to Tim for joining me, and thank you, as always, for listening. It's crazy times, folks. I'll be back with another episode after Sunday's game. Talk to you next time.